Hello everyone, my name is Loko and welcome to some more StarCraft 2. Today I'm going to be doing a game analysis of a game that I played yesterday against Yui. He's a very popular, I believe, Taiwanese live streamer, although don't quote me on that. But in this video, I want to be discussing the one base aggressive push that I've been practicing for like the last 50 games or so. A couple days ago, I uploaded a video. I will leave that as the very first link right below in the description because I would recommend checking that one out first so you have an idea of what is going on. But basically the idea of the build is to go for 6 Ravagers early on, 6 to 8 Ravagers early on, and then to actually switch back into full-on droning. And that is something that Zerg has never really been able to do. I mean, oftentimes you would be able to maybe go for 6 Roaches or so early on, but since, you know, you have a high ground, for example, you get a high ground right here, and Roach's range is kind of low, you can't really get anything done with them. Oftentimes it just ended up being pointless. But in one of the recent patches, they upped the range of the basic ability of the Ravager significantly, so I believe it's 6 range right now, which means that you can be shooting up ramps relatively easily. But on top of that, obviously, Ravagers have the corrosive bio ability that allows you to shoot something at 9 range. Now, with the Python overcharge in Zerg vs Protoss being 7 range, you can actually be very, very useful and you can do a ton of damage. So, what this build is all about, I'm gonna really quickly give you an introduction on it. You go for a hatch, then you go for a spawning pool, then you go for a gas geyser. Instead of getting Zergling speed, you get a Roach Warren and a second gas. You save up minerals and gas for a little while, and then you pump out 6 to 8 Ravagers and go from there. And then afterwards, you go straight back into droning. Now, I've been doing this a lot for the last 50 games or so, like I said, especially in Zerg vs Terran. I've noticed in Zerg vs Terran that if they go for their standard like Hellion, Hellbat into Liberator push, which is 100% standard right now in Zerg vs Terran, you basically win the game straight up because they don't expect 6 Ravagers to knock at their door. And I would not be surprised if this build is going to be 100% standard in Zerg vs Terran if the Zerg scouts that the Terran player is not going for any kind of bio opener, or if they scout that they're not going for any kind of benchy openers. And it's basically, I'm pretty convinced that this could be a meta change, especially in Zerg vs Terran. I've been winning I think about 80% of my Zerg vs Terrans because of this build, and it's been working very well. On top of that, I also have been doing it in Zerg vs Zerg a little bit. In Zerg vs Zerg, it works alright, but there's a lot of like Ling Bailing cheese and whatnot going on right now in Zerg vs Zerg that I don't really enjoy it as much. In Zerg vs Protoss, though, is the one thing that I've been struggling at the most. So in Zerg vs Protoss, there's a couple of ways Protoss can deal with this aggression. For example, what they can do is actually go for a very quick Stargate, which is in pretty much like 50% of the Zerg vs Protoss games the case right now, where they go for a quick Stargate and they just sort of start pumping out one Oracle and then switch into Void Rays. And obviously, Void Rays, you know, Ravagers cannot really shoot up, so the Void Rays are just going to be able to deal with it. However, even in that scenario, oftentimes you can still put on plenty of pressure, and because of all the droning you do behind it, you will still be able to be in a very, very nice position. Now, in this specific game, I'm scouting around right here. I'm trying to figure out whether or not he is indeed going for a Stargate, because if he's not, let's say he's going for Dark Templar Rush, or let's say he's going for I don't know, like a robotics facility or a Twilight Council or something like that, I will have a very easy time dealing some damage with this build as well. So as you can see in this specific case, I go for an 8 Roach variant rather than the 6 Roach one, which is what I've been doing the most of. This one works very well as well, even saving the life of that one Zergling right there. But I'm gonna be going for a bunch of Roaches with this as well, and I believe I then end up having 3 Roaches and 5 Ravagers, something like that. It's something I've been testing over the last couple days just to figure out what is best. But as a follow-up to this, I'm gonna be droning up exclusively. So right now I got my Roaches out, I find a Zealot on my side of the map as well, and I'm gonna just be pushing across the map right now. Now, in the meantime, what I'm gonna follow this up with as well is a whole bunch of drones, obviously, and I do want to go for a 3rd base as well. So, the best thing I've noticed with this build is because we are skipping out early Zergling speed, we aren't having any kind of Zergling speed, and we just simply don't have the gas for that. Going for an all-in off of this is not really worth it. It's much better to just make like one big swell of Ravagers, so in this case it's gonna be 8, and then switch into full-on droning. Because, you know, you're gonna need the gas anyway to add on the Ravagers, and you're gonna be flooding minerals. It is much better to just make exclusively drones for a little while and then add on the Ravagers. Now, in this specific game, as you can see, I noticed my opponent is going for pretty standard play. I noticed with the first Overlord in the natural that he was adding on extra gates right here, but also that he had the double gases not significantly earlier than any other time. So I know right now that it's very unlikely that he is going for any kind of Stargate play. It seems to be the case that they stick to 2 gas for a little while longer. Now, what I'm trying to do with this push is just as much damage as possible. Keep in mind, Zerg vs Terran, this would pretty much be an auto win win in this scenario if he was going for the standard place. In this specific game, I'm just trying to get value out of whatever I can. Now, one thing to note about Protoss, however, is that the pylon overcharge, which is the new photon overcharge that you can now put down on a pylon, is actually extremely good against this. So you need to snipe down pylons ASAP. Like, it's even more important to snipe down pylons right now than it is to snipe down anything like for example, what are they called? The cannons, for example. So right here, I'm just trying to do whatever damage I can. I've not really killed that many workers. I mean, I killed 14 actually. That's a pretty big amount. But I've not like killed a game-ending amount of workers. But you gotta keep in mind, while he is warping in constant units right now, just to try and see if he can hold this, I am in the meantime making exclusively drones. He doesn't really have the resources to do so, right? So I'm just trying to make as many workers as I possibly can, killing the cyber core, and getting that third base up and going, tacking up to a lair, going for the upgrades, and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just trying to get value out of the army that I got. So keep in mind, I am not by all means, or by any means, committing into this as an all-in. I'm just trying to do whatever damage I can and get that third base up and going. And that's the real strength of this. So right now, it is 56 Harvesters versus 29. And even if my opponent would have gone for Stargate openers, I tend to still be getting a very, very nice economy lead early on, just because, you know, I know for a fact that he doesn't really have very much to deal with it. Protoss players and, like, Terran players alike are playing extremely greedy, and they're very used to them sitting back for the most part of the game. And they're very not used to Zerg being aggressive. I mean, like I said, in Harder to Swarm, the worst you would get is, like, a couple roaches at your front door, and you would just do photon overcharge or, like, you know, put down a pylon or a bunker, and then you'd be like, LOL, that was fun, right? But in general, this seems to work out very well. Now, one thing to note, by the way, Zerg versus Terran, is that if they go for siege tank drops, they all of a sudden can just instantly win, but it's relatively uncommon right now. I don't really see it all too much. So at this point in time, I know for a fact that I killed significant economy of my opponent. I know for a fact that I will likely have to face an all-in from here on out. Now, one thing to ensure this is to poop creep on his third base, and even though the creep dissipates a little faster in the latest patch, this is gonna, you know, at the very least give me vision of when he moves out. So just in case, I am getting spore crawlers in every base, just in case he goes for Warp Prism, if he goes for Dark Templar, if he goes for Oracle, I may as well just make down the spore crawlers right now, just to prevent any kind of silly losses right now. And from here on out, since I have that superior economy, and I know for a fact I have that superior economy right now by having a third base, and knowing my opponent doesn't have one, I'm just gonna sit here and make a non-stop army. And that's exactly what most of my games over the last couple days have been looking like. If I do substantial amount of damage early on, I will be able to switch into, you know, use that bigger economy, and I will be able to switch into a bigger amount of units. It doesn't even really matter what I make right now. I can go for Ravager Zergling, I can go for pure Hydra Zergling, I can go for Roach, like pure Roach with upgrades. Like, you can go for a ton of different things. And for the most part, as long as you're like safe against everything, and the same goes obviously versus Terran, where the spore crawlers are still gonna be worth it, oftentimes at the very least, it's all good to just do whatever unit you want. I mean, you could probably pull this off with pure Zergling if you go for the double upgrades and tech up towards Mutalisk or something like that. Although this is just the very safest I can go for. I'm even adding on spine crawlers right now, just in case. But yeah, I've just been making non-stop army right now, and I'm trying to figure out where my opponent wants to engage me. And knowing that I have that superior economy just gives me, like, it just gives me the guarantee right now that I have a bigger economy. Or that I have a bigger army. The only thing I need is time, right? Let's say I have 50 Harvesters and he has 20. I mean, the longer the game goes on, the more units I will be able to create, and oftentimes it doesn't even really matter what you do. So, long story short, you basically try and do damage early on with the, there's a Dark Templar, by the way. But you try and do early game damage with the, Ravagers, and especially in Zerg vs Terran that works great. In Zerg vs Protoss it works great if you realize they aren't going for a Stargate. And then you switch into a ton of workers, so you make tons and tons and tons of drones while you are trying to do some damage with the Ravagers. You make purely drones, and then as a follow-up, you just get that economy established, and then when you are done making drones, which in this case I actually lose a bunch of, I don't know exactly how many I lose 8 right there, which isn't ideal, but you know, once you know you have that bigger economy established, you can go ahead and make non-stop army, and oftentimes it doesn't even really matter what you have. So right now I'm just waiting for upgrades to finish up. +1 armor, actually, I think I just finished. Let me have a double check at that. Yeah, I did just finish up +1 armor. And right now I'm just gonna move out across the map, bring some spore crawlers with this army as well. I got the Hydra Den finished up already with its upgrade. Gonna morph that into a Lurker Den. I did get the Ravager new upgrade as well. What's it called? pressurized glance, if I'm not mistaken, like that new upgrade that basically makes it way stronger. And, you know, it gives them 13 range right now on the corrosive bio ability. Hydras with upgrades, roaches with upgrades, and knowing that I had that superior upgrade or that superior amount of economy early on, I will be able to just simply win the game straight up right here. So I hope you guys at least got a little bit more insight in how this build works. I would highly recommend you give it a try. You should really check out the other video though if you're like completely interested in the build, or because I actually discussed it a lot more. I just talked strategy in this one. But it's very fun to mess around with, and it's actually really nice. Like, it's a really nice change to be able to do early game aggression as Zerg, and not like just have Protoss and Terran completely decide the early game like they have been able to do for a long time. I mean, basically what Protoss and Terran have been doing for the longest time is figure out how to hold the roach aggression and then be as greedy as possible from there on out. But right now, the Ravagers switch up everything in the early game, and I have been, you know, I've been having a blast. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you would like to see more of these kind of strategy talks, because I'm never really like 100% sure if people actually enjoy these. But I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, okay? And I'll see you in the next one.